What's up, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer and Tim Hyde from Blue and Gold. It's the day after Notre Dame's 21-10 loss against Ohio State, and Tim rewatched the game. Kind of emotion aside, well, maybe some frustration you still had watching the game back as a Notre Dame fan, Tim, but put more of your Coach Hyde hat on when you rewatched it. So we're going to go through 4 talking points first. Let's start it off with a glass half full kind of approach. The positives. What were the biggest, again, positives that you took away from your rewatch and seeing this Irish team?
Sure. Number one, let's go back to the last time we watched Notre Dame. When was the last time we saw these guys? The Fiesta Bowl. And we came away like these DBs were really bad. And they were probably the best unit by far for Notre Dame last night. Those guys played their tails off. They played with tons of energy, a lot of pride. Even when the Buckeyes caught the ball, there was a Notre Dame dude on them instantly. So they didn't have a lot of free catches outside of, early when Cam Hart struggled in that first part of the game. Outside of that, they played outstanding. And then in the rewatch, you can't say enough about Tariq Bracy. We mentioned it last night. He was outstanding football player, best player on defense. And then how about going back real quick, little shout out to our signing day show. You and I talked about the hidden gem in this class. Everybody forgot about Mr. Ben Morrison was a dude last night. And that guy is going to just do nothing but play more and more as the season goes on. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter someday this season because he looked like a legitimate SEC style of corner out there.
Tim, we talk about this a lot. Your secondary is better when the quarterback has less time to throw. So, you can't have a really strong secondary without a strong front getting after the quarterback. And it's a little bit vice versa. If the quarterback is able to get rid of the ball super quickly because the defense, the secondary can't cover, you can't do much for as a defensive line. So I say that to bring up the point. Notre Dame did not get much of a pass rush. They got 1 sack. And CJ Stroud, got rid of the ball still pretty quickly. A lot of dink and dunks, but even without much pressure, the secondary still looked really good.
Oh, great. Yes, great point. I mean, they had the early sack by Howard Cross. Foskey did, on the touchdown pass on the double safety blitz, Foskey did get to Stroud a millisecond late, and he actually had a sack to open that drive on that touchdown drive. But yeah, you're right. Outside of that, they did flush him a couple times, but really was never threatened. And those pinpoint passes that Stroud threw were right on there. And the Notre Dame dude was covering those guys like a glove. Stroud's the most accurate quarterback in the country. What can you do? The DBs were outstanding last night.
All right, let's go glass half empty. Maybe not glass half empty, but just areas of improvement, biggest things that this Notre Dame team needs to fix. In these next couple of games against Marshall and Cal.
Well, just real quick, one more positive is let's go back to Tyler Buckner. No turnovers. So, and I know we had talked about this before. You're going into Columbus, your first start. But he hasn't started a game since his junior season in high school because he didn't get a senior season in high school due to the COVID year. And he comes away with no turnovers and moved Notre Dame around a little bit and obviously missed a few things, whatnot. But for him, that positives, he's got to come out of there feeling good. Like, hey, you know what? Put more on me and let's move forward. So I was really, really pleased with Tyler Buckner.
And then areas improvement, Tim?
Yeah, the big areas of improvement. Number one, D-line. Where were the D-line? That was really frustrating. But I think a lot of that in the rewatch had more to do with Ohio State. Their offensive line was really good. Played with a lot of attitude, a lot of anger, especially coming from Ryan Day, because once again, people want to talk about things we talked about with Notre Dame and improvements and all that. Ohio State, for a team that only lost 2 games last year, heard nothing but negativity the last 9 months, and they played with it last night. So the D-line just did not get off blocks. The run game, Ohio State's run game was literally no tackles for losses from anybody in that front 7. None. And that's the most frustrating thing in a big game like this was this unit, which everyone in the media felt was their front 7 was going to be elite status, no tackles for losses, only 1 sack, which came in the first drive or the first series of the game. That was the biggest thing. So this D-line needs to pick it up, needs to take ownership and dominate games moving forward, especially if the secondary is going to continue to improve and play like this. That was a big disappointment just to see no pressure, no tackles for loss on the run. And real quick, Mike, in the second half, Ohio State's run efficiency, which I'm a big believer in this, getting at least 4 yards per carry, or if it's 3rd and 2, you get a first down, you get 2 yards, you get the first down. You score a touchdown, whether it's on the one. Their efficiency, they were 90%. They only had two runs less than 4 yards in the second half. Ohio State's offensive line took over this football game.
So, Tim, we were talking before we started recording about just some narratives out there, media-wise, about Notre Dame just kind of wearing down and being too tired there. That's how it looked like Notre Dame was worn down, but maybe it was more of a mental wearing of down than physical. What do you think?
Could be. Because I've heard that, that was, some of the takes after the game and press conferences and things of that nature. I don't think so, especially with the defense, because number one, this defense rotates probably more than anyone in the top 20. I'm just throwing that against the wall, but they play 7, 8, 9 D linemen at times. 4 senior linebackers were rotating nonstop. All the DBs they played, there were 6 DBs, 5. They were a nickel every single play. They never had 3 linebackers on the field. So they're constantly rotating guys. The corners were going from Lewis to Morrison to Cam Hart, and they played 4? They played 5 safeties. So this notion that you're tired, I didn't see it because I'm watching the film. I thought a lot of it was a little bit of X and O's at times. Notre Dame was blitzing a lot in that, especially in that second half. And if you're a linebacker and you pop and you don't hit it, open lanes. And the Buckeyes had a handful of open lanes. So I don't buy it because Notre Dame rotates a lot. They train a lot. Matt Bayless and his strength program has a lot of, street cred out there in the industry. So I didn't see it, and it wasn't hot. It wasn't humid. It wasn't like the Florida State game last year in Tallahassee. So, and at the same time, the game's 10-7 with 13 seconds to go before the fourth quarter. And then it's 14-10 and they go on that 95-yard drive. Well, they go on the 95-yard drive because the front seven's making no plays. So if you're getting tired, it has more to do with yourself getting blocked, not getting off blocks. So that was my take on that, that little press narrative that's floating out there about Notre Dame. And on offense, they weren't tired because they didn't have the ball that much. So that was and Ohio State doesn't rotate a ton.
So, Tim, we were talking yesterday during our live show, and I was like, how you feel about this game right now? It's kind of based on your expectations going into it. Like, if you thought Notre Dame was going to win, you're ticked. But if you thought Notre Dame was going to lose by 7 or 10 points like me, or you're just a neutral fan and you think that Notre Dame's probably going to get blown out, then you're impressed by the Irish hanging in there and looking like the better team for, 60% of the game or so.
Yep.
So you were in the former camp thinking that Notre Dame was going to win. That's what you had predicted. So now, again, going back to what I said earlier about putting emotion aside here and just putting on your Coach Hyde hat, are you feeling okay about this team? Like, how are you feeling about the Fighting Irish right now, after the 21-10 game?
Well, a couple things obviously just got to iron out. This defense has some dudes that could fly around and make plays. And I think we're going to continue to see that. Is Notre Dame going to face the size and athleticism of an offensive line like this the rest of the season? Probably not. So the front seven should just dominate the next, 11 games because there's no one on their schedule that's as good as these guys up front. So really excited about that. Really excited, to see obviously the secondary, the way they played. I think they took a chip on their shoulder from that Fiesta Bowl. And I think that mojo is going to keep moving along with them. And then really a positive thing, which I truly believe is going to happen, is the offensive line. We haven't even talked about the offensive line yet. The offensive line, communication things. I noticed 2 big things. Some of the pass pro, I know some, people were talking about the pass pro and giving up some sacks. Some of those pressures, by the way, people out there, is the Buckeyes brought 5 guys with only 3 blockers. So there was always an extra guy. There was a couple times Notre Dame was sliding. And to me, whenever the running back and the center slide together, I always feel like that's a miscommunication because you're one less short on the other side. And that did happen quite often in this football game, which I found interesting. And some of the miscommunication, once again, I felt came from the center and Zeke Correll. That's what it looked like when I'm watching him and the way the back moves. And you could just tell was full line slant. There's one play where Kristofic moved to a side, but Correll moved to the same side and the back moved. And Fisher and Lugg were out there on an island. So I think that's definitely going to get corrected because Coach Heastand's not going to stand for that. He's going to fix that thing. And I think the run game is going to improve as they get more downhill action, for these guys. We saw a little bit of the pause, a lot of inside, zone type actions again. And I think we're going to see improvements. And then the number one thing I question, Mike, is who is Notre Dame going to find? Marshall, Cal at UNC, the bye, getting ready for Brigham Young. Who is that number 2 option? Because they had 23 pass attempts last night, 23, drop backs, counting the sacks and the scrambles and that. 8 of those went to Michael Mayer. 8 of those went to Michael Mayer. The next guy with the next receiver you showed last night was only 4. So who is going to evolve on the outside perimeter for Notre Dame to have a true threat? Because we saw obviously the nice pass to Lindsey for 32 yards, the first or second play of the third quarter to Styles. It just missed by a hair, and that's 40-yard, 50-yard gain. So it's going to get better, and I think we're going to see some vertical threats after rewatching this thing. I truly do, because Notre Dame has to push the ball vertically to threaten some of these good teams that they're going to play down the road.
All right, to hear more from Tim Hyde, we will have a live show on Wednesday night, I believe about 7 p.m. Eastern time we'll get going. So make sure you check that out and head to blueandgold.com for more coverage of Notre Dame versus Ohio State and kind of getting into Marshall week. We'll have all of the articles you need to read there, and as well as more videos on our YouTube page here at Blue and Gold. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.